If you are an estate agent, letting agent, or someone who is interested in the property market, then the UK property market stat show is for you. My name is Chris Watkin, and every week I do the show with a special guest. This week it is Brian Mansell. We'll come to Brian in a second. Why should you watch this show? Well, the British are obsessed with the property market, and whenever the Land Registry chucks something out, it's front page news. The Halifax and Nationwide French front page news. The problem is that the Land Registry is looking at data from sales that took place 8, 9, 10 months ago. The Halifax and Nationwide are looking at sales that took place 2, 3 months ago. We're looking at last week, ladies and gentlemen. So if you want to know what's happening in the property market, up-to-date information, then this is for you. The show itself lasts approximately 1 hour. The first half an hour is where myself and my special guest look at the UK property market and look at all the data, listings, exchanges, sales, everything to do with the property market. And then the second half is that we look at a town or a city and really deep dive to analyze the estate agents in that patch and to work out who is the best and who needs to improve. This week I'm joined by Brian Mansell, certainly not a stranger to the show. Brian is the boss man of Gazelle and has a fantastic previous background with some massive jobs in the industry. What he doesn't know about estate agency is certainly not worth knowing. So listen to what he has to say. He's very straight talking. As I said, he's the boss man of Gazelle, a product that helps estate agents and also everyone in the chain stop fall throughs and bringing them down into single digits. Thanks for joining me today, Brian.
Chris, it is more my pleasure than yours.
Bless you. You'll go far in this world. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at week 7 of the UK property market, which is, just looking at the calendar, Monday the 16th of February all the way through to include Sunday the 22nd of February. We will be doing year to date, comparing this year against all the years back to 2017. We will also be doing week 7 compared to other week 7s and analysing and seeing where we are in the market. You see, ladies and gentlemen, especially if you're an estate agent and letting agent, 36% of homeowners chose their estate agent based on that agent's property market knowledge. So this show could certainly help. We are going to be throwing you loads of graphs and loads of data. And those graphs and data can be used for you, not on social media, but at the valuation to make yourself look really awesome and knowledgeable. So without further ado, Brian, let's go and have a look at those Stallaroonies.
Let's do exactly that. Looking forward to it.
So just confirm you can see the stats there, Brian?
Yep, all good, awesome. Thank you.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, what we do here is that I just spend probably about 30 seconds looking at each set of data, and then Brian will give his opinion and thoughts. So we start with listings, and we are on 243,000 properties that have come onto the market since the start of the year. That is 1.1% ahead of last year, 10% ahead of 2024, 20% ahead of the pre-COVID 17, 18 and 19, and 13.6% ahead of the 10-year average. The number of properties that have come onto the market this week, as I said, was 36,400. Well, and if you see on the graph here, you will see it's very similar to last year at 35,000. And all the years, as you can see, this is week 7 by standalone. Sorry. In terms of year to date, we'll just pull that up now. Apologies, excuse me, coughing, just coming out the other side of a bit of man flu. The white line here is 2026. And as you say, it is that compared to last year, we are slightly ahead. And you can see that in the fact that the white line is slightly above the orange line. And as I said, it is the best year for listings. Are they selling or not? We'll come to that in a second. So, Brian, what's your thoughts on that, mate?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely feedback we're getting from agents that we work with, and which is now numbering over 2,000. So it's a pretty comprehensive amount of feedback. Is a very positive start, hugely positive. You know, one of the best starts, the best feelings they've had in the market for a number of years, despite what the stats might show. And of course, that's reflected by the number of listings that have improved. A lot of people, there's a lot of questions about, well, why are the stats suddenly so good? Combination, lower interest rates with more positivity coming from the Bank of England about potential future cuts. So people getting on the market now, which actually is interesting because the weather's been dreadful in January. So normally when you have a horrible cold snap or very wet period, which we've had, you don't tend to see lots of instructions coming on at the same time, but clearly shows that the British people, the British public are not deterred by the weather. Personally, I think there's a bit of a hangover from Q4 25, mainly due to the budget, and a lot of people were hanging on. And of course, by the time that the budget sort of results filtered through, and people had waited, most people tend to wait until the new year to get their property launched. So I think there's an element of that that's fueled the market, but it's all good.
Well, I would agree with you there. Look at the orange line, which is 2025, and it was very much massively ahead of the game compared to the other years.
Yeah.
But if you notice, after the Easter break, Easter, I always mix them up with the August bank holiday, which is always that dip there. That's always the August bank holiday.
Yeah.
Notice how the orange was ahead of the pack, and slowly throughout quarter four, it was slipping to the bottom. So I believe you're absolutely bang on that some of it is a hangover from a bad Q4.
And I think the other thing as well is, and this is certainly a message that if I was an estate agent right now, I would be telling your buyers what a great time to buy. Because, of course, once there's lots of stock coming to the market, that will put a bit more pressure on pricing to be more accurate, to be a bit more competitive, because there's more competition, obviously. And that means that's good news for buyers. In a buyer's market, they can haggle, put themselves in a strong position, get their mortgage arranged before they go viewing, and hit the market and look to do a deal. So, yeah, good news all round, I think.
Excellent. Right. Let's now move on and look at price reductions. And the average price of a property being reduced was 382,000. Or just by the way, and we will look at this in a second, ladies and gentlemen, but the average price of a property coming on the market was 419,000, which again is in line. We do have a different stat on that later to compare the average price of a property coming on versus the average price of a property going sale agreed. Price reductions 19,000. Let's just remind ourselves the number of properties that are currently on the market. Here we go. And okay, this is 2 weeks out of date because we only make this measurement on
go up one graph, Chris. That's the sales pipeline.
Oh, well done. So my apologies. Here we go. Thank you. So on the 31st of January going into the 1st of February, there were 663,000 properties on the market. So if we just put that into the calculator, let's just do that a second, and we'll just hold on, there we go. So that's 19,000, so we'll call that 80, then we've got the other, an extra few days, so we'll call that 90,000, hold on, 90,000 divided by 663, and we are reducing 13.6% of the houses that we have on our books. Last month it was 12.2, and you can see here that I find it fascinating, Brian, and we say this most weeks, is that the very cyclical tide-like way of the property market, that the percentage of and this is sales, this is listings, every metric is like a metronome. You know exactly where it's going to be. It's just whether it's slightly higher or slightly lower, depending on the tide. December, then it rises up. Look, and you'll see this, ladies. Look what we see with the listings. Everything is, it takes off. It's nice and steady. And then we have the 3 bank holidays of Easter and the 2 spring bank holidays. Then it's a slight drift down, then always the August, then a drift down. And you can see the shapes are all identical. It's just moving up and down. So, yeah, the 13...
The disappointing thing about price reductions is that when you have a situation of, more stock entering the market, and I mentioned it in my, opening ramble, what is good business and sensible commerciality is actually getting this stock listed on keener prices that the market has already told you. So if you've got a 3-bed terrace that you've been trying to, or a 3-bed semi you've been marketing for 450 in Q4 and it's not shifted, don't list the next one at 450, list it at 425, get it sold, then get the one at 450 down to 425 and get that sold. So there should be a larger number of price reductions rather than the usual 10 to 12 to 13% that's happening because of the rise of instructions. That should be giving the perfect indication as to what, that there's this carrying stock, as you've mentioned, that's carried over the Christmas into the New Year period, that's still sitting there. New stock is coming on and selling because of the pricing position is keener, but that shouldn't be the case. I mean, it should be that, the number of sales should be doubling because of a focus on adjustment on prices of carried stock that's come into the new year.
Absolutely bang on. I mean, isn't it interesting that I believe, what's the number? Hold on, 86% of sales take place in the first 12 weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, it's 85.5% of sales take place in the first 12 weeks. Yep, that's the number. I remember it now. Right, let's move over to sold subject to contracts. So this week, 26,159. And you've got all the numbers there compared. I remember, isn't it interesting? Look, heads and shoulders. But do remember with 2025, we had a good start. Remember, because there was, again, the deadline for first-time buyers was still the 5th of April, but there was almost like a good hangover that people would say, oh, we might be able to get it through. I mean, God, you wouldn't get it through. But you know what people are like, bless them. But it was a good start to 2025, so don't be too dismissive. We're not far off. The average price of a property selling, 356. Year to date, 166,000, or we'll call that 167,000, which is 6.3% below last year, 12% above 24, 20.2% above pre-COVID 17, 18, and 19.
Chris, what's the one reason a property doesn't sell?
Well, it's marketing and price, but I would
Right.
say that I would say with Rightmove and decent photographs, it's price.
Price. The bedroom's too small for the price. It's too close to the main road for the price. That garden's too small for the price. There's too much work for the price. There isn't enough parking for the price. The for the price is always applicable to every reason given for a property that doesn't sell. So therefore, back to what I just said, the attitude and focus in a market that is showing a wonderful start, a great opportunity for people because of the propensity to move by the public, is not being picked up on properly commercially by the professional estate agents in the business.
And I'm of the opinion that is because estate agents want the listing more than they want the sale.
Yeah, I mean, controversially as it will sound, and you sort of, you warned your readers and your listeners about this, they're more interested in flying their drones around people's gardens, trying to find a new angle, or taking videos of themselves outside someone's house than they are about getting into the macroeconomics of how they can get their business making a lot more profit. And more importantly, and I mean this, helping people who are relying on them to move.
I mean, absolutely shocking. You know damn well I throw the odd grenade out most hours on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And it when 46.5% of homes don't sell, and in London, it's 2/3 don't sell.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, what are you there for? Are you there to sell houses or there to put the house on the market? I tell you what it is. It's bruised egos that they don't want to lose it to the competition.
Well, the thing is, you mentioned it, and you are right in part that it is to do with marketing at a certain point. If you are any industry, whether you're selling cars or you're selling newspapers or you're selling holidays, whatever it is, and you have a comparative product to what is already on the market that's being, shown to customers, and you do nothing different, even if you price it a bit higher, how are you justifying that? How does your marketing justify a higher price to a comparable product? I hate to use the term product because it's a property, but it's not a product. But the point being is, if you've got two Mars bars and you're asking £2 for one and £1 for the other one, well, what's the one at £2? Why is that an extra pound? If you can't explain that, well, then you're a bloody idiot. So that Mars bar should be 99p if there's absolutely nothing to choose between them, if you want to sell it before the other one. But we don't have that attitude towards pricing on property, which is crazy. And it's ultimately what's causing, a lot of people, like you say, 40% of people who want to move who don't.
It's amazing. Right. Let's look at this graph particularly here. This graph here, the white line is 2026. And again, you can see that the red line being 2025 was a good year. And it actually, it continued to be a good year until after the August break. Yeah. Okay. So do you compare yourself against last year, or do you compare yourself against all the other years? And we're doing really well.
You compare yourself against the previous year. That's the most immediate market comparison you've got.
Yeah, and we are below by about 6% year to date.
But on sales, yet ahead on listings. So there you go. I mean, it's really obvious what needs to happen.
So that means, ladies and gentlemen, that net stock is going to grow, although the number of withdrawals is quite high, which means that everyone's quite lucky on that one. But again, that could change. You've got to keep an eye on the amount of stock that's for sale. And a great comparison is, what's the ratio of sale agreeds versus properties on the market? And measure that. And that is how you can tell if you've got an oversupply property market in a particular. And you can do that for the whole market. You can do that for 3-bed semis, 2-bedroom terrace, 1-bed flats, whatever you want. It's a great way. And again, remember what the Property Academy says. They interviewed 10,000, they surveyed 10,000 vendors. What made you choose your estate agent? And always, one of the biggest things is the agent who knew what they were talking about and knew the local property market. And if all you're doing is going around and just saying, hi, we're a great agent, look at our market share, look at my pretty photographs, and hey, look at my drone shots. Right, moving on. Resi sell-through rate, agents sold 13.6% of the homes that they had on their books in January last year. That will get updated next. Will it be next? No, that'll be updated in 2 shows' time when we get the figures through. The percentage difference between the average listing price and the average sale agreed price. So the average price of a property coming on the market in week 7 was 419,800, and the average price of a property going sale agreed was 356. That doesn't mean that the 419s are being chipped away to 356. That means the lower price properties have a higher chance of selling, and therefore that will drag the average down. The percentage difference is 17.8, which is bang on the national the national long-term average. And then this just plots those figures, the red line being the average listing price going back to 23, and the turquoise line is the average sold at the contract asking price. Again, I find it fascinating that if the more expensive ones sell in the middle of the year, then it drops, then it goes up, then it goes down, then it goes up, then it goes. It's just magical, this cyclical nature. And again, those of you are new to the show, you might be wondering what those yellow bars are. That's London. What happens is, and we say this most weeks in the show if you've not watched before, basically London falls asleep in the winter, in July and August. And then whilst everyone else in the UK is getting on with life, and then what happens is everyone puts their properties on the market in W and SW postcodes, and it whacks up the average by about £80,000. Amazing. Anyway, Fall Thrus. This is your area of expertise, Brian. Okay, so now this is interesting, Brian. And I'm sure this has got absolutely everything to do with what you are doing. Remember, other reservation agreement providers are available. I have to say that, although we're a big fan of Brian on the show. The number of fall throughs seems to be dropping in numbers and percentage.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And that's exactly what I think everybody wants, right? We don't want to see high fall through rates. Nobody benefits from that.
No.
Absolutely anybody. And what's interesting is that we've seen within the numbers that we do on a monthly, daily basis, a very interesting psychological shift away from people who there seems to be more challenges during a sale that is not necessarily resulting in people falling apart, but it's resulting in people renegotiating or trying to get money off and so on and so on. And there's lots of different factors for that or reasons for that, surveys being one of them. But people are generally much more motivated to buy someone's house, but they do want to see the price change whilst they're trying to do it. And that's the difference. If we can, that's a big challenge. If we can keep people on track and keep them away from trying to gazunder, essentially, then we'll see that rate fall even further.
Again, the job of the estate agent is to remove the emotion as much as possible from the housing transaction so we can all be adults about it. And that's what, some of that is going to be because a lot more agents are taking on reservation agreements, which is good. And again, ladies and gentlemen, the two things that you should be doing, and again, to reduce your fall through rates, one is reservation agreements. And again, don't see it as a barrier to get the listing. If you trained well, which is what we love about Brian and Kazil, is that they'll teach you valuers how to do it, which is really important. The other thing is get the solicitors instructed on listing, so they can start getting a contract together. Because if you can lose 3 or 4 weeks at the start, you're going to make sure that you're not house those 3 or 4 weeks at the end. And that's what happens, Brian, isn't it?
Well, it is.
It's very emotional. If you don't exchange by Friday, I'm pulling out. You can't exchange by Friday. But then they have to pull out because their pride gets in the way.
But Chris, there is also one factor that for the last millennia has caused low fall through rates. Any idea what that might be?
Share it with me. Share it with everyone else watching.
You're not selling enough houses.
Go on.
No, that's the answer. One of the main reasons for low fall through rates is you're not selling enough houses.
Why do you say that?
Because that's true, right? I meet people who say, "Oh, I don't have a fall through problem. Money, my sales don't fall through." And I'm, well, that's phenomenal. But you're selling 4 houses a month. You should be selling 40 houses a month from the stock. So when you look at sell-through rates at 40% or 46%, that is the reason why your fall-throughs are low. Now, once you'll see the numbers rise in terms of gross sales, as people get their act together on pricing as we go into the back end of Q1 into the spring and Q2, then you'll see the fall-throughs rise unless action is taken around them. You've obviously got another, other area that's helping at the moment, which is the fact that interest rates are coming down and are talking about coming down again, which is obviously good news, reiterating the point that they won't go back to COVID levels, but we're seeing a balance, we're seeing stability a little bit on interest rates, and of course that gives the banks confidence to lend because global borrowing rates are slightly better, despite what various leaders around this world are trying to do at the moment to unstabilize the economy. But ultimately, the fundamental reason that you have low fall throughs is you are not selling enough of your stock.
Well, actually, Brian, if you actually ignore these spikes, ladies and gentlemen, because they're the Christmas spikes. Because when we're dealing with such low numbers in December's, the numbers go a bit squiffy on the percentages. But look at it and ignore that. That's Liz Truss, bless her. Okay, but look, this is 24. The percentage was growing and growing and growing, then drop, then growing and growing and growing. So Brian has insight there. We are starting from a lower base this year, but still fundamentally, you're absolutely right. The cyclical nature of it is this. I can see that pattern now. Yes, we're starting from a lower base from around 20 in January and February as opposed to 22, but that will rise to 25, 26% as you sell more houses. Absolutely insight. You can see why we invite him back on a regular basis, gentlemen.
Well, it's never changed, Chris. The point is, there's nothing clever about it. You talk quite a lot about the cyclical nature of the market. You're absolutely right. It is cyclical, and I'm talking about going back to 1987 when I started off in the industry. It's never changed. These graphs, these spikes, these flows, as I call it, the tide of the market, very rarely changes. And when you track your number of gross sales, the higher your gross sales go, the more fall throughs you're going to get, unless you fundamentally change what you're doing so that as your gross sales get higher, your fall throughs don't. And if you can get that right, imagine the financial difference that makes not only to you, but the phenomenal difference that makes to your customers that are employing you to because they think you know what you're doing.
So right. You're so right. Let's move on to net sales, ladies and gentlemen. Net sales is gross sales less fall throughs. We're on 21,108 year to date, 129,100, which is 4.3% below last year, 11.7% ahead of 24, 29.4% ahead of 23, and 16, or we'll call it 17% higher than the 17, 18, and 19 figures. And there's the graph there, the white line being 26 scores. What's your thoughts on this?
It's just what I've just said a minute ago. I mean,
Yeah.
it's exactly, there's nothing more to add to that fact, is that it's still astonishes me that our profession seems to lack a business acumen. And of course, I'm saying that as a generalization because there's some excellent business people in the industry, clearly. But the majority,
I would say a decent chunk of employed estate agents. I'm going to be quite controversial here, especially more those in the south and the north. Are just basically salespeople. They don't really care what they're selling. They want the kick of the sale and not losing it to the competition. And whether you're selling estate agency services or double glazing or satellites or whatever you're selling, I honestly,
there are very few buyers, and bearing in mind the volume of people that we deal with on a daily basis, there are very few buyers who were alerted to the property they're offering on by a telephone call from an agent.
Sorry,
what I mean is,
sorry, I don't understand. An estate agent ringing up someone on their mailing list.
Yeah, what I mean is, we look at the percentages and we look at the graphs, and the reasons that these numbers don't very often change. And actually, when you look at this 2026 and think there's lots more stock and there's a massive appetite of people wanting to buy stuff. So why aren't they? Who's in between those two consumer groups? Well, it's the estate agent, right? And Rightmove and so on. So if you are looking to buy a property, you'll go on Rightmove, and Rightmove are developing that with their AI talk with ChatGPT and so on and so on. So that's going to get more and more prevalent for the public. But there still does not beat you knowing who your buyers are and giving them a call when you come out of a property that you've listed. But that isn't happening at scale, which is why the numbers don't change and why you get it's a pretty obvious picture from what you're showing everybody. Loads of new stock, sales down. Well, who's responsible for that? It's just one group. It isn't the market, it isn't the interest rates, it isn't the government, it isn't mortgages, it isn't surveyors, it isn't solicitors, it's the agents. So if you're not changing your model because you've got all this new stock, then nothing's going to change. So net sales will be low. How is it that net sales are 4.3% lower when instructions are higher?
Here you go, ladies and gentlemen. We told you we'd be straight with you. You might not like what you want to hear.
Oh, I'd love someone to tell me I'm wrong and tell me what.
Well, you came on the Watkin sofa with Sarah Edmondson about 8 years ago, and you said, bless her, God rest her soul, and you said to me, the pair of you, that Rightmove is the best negotiator an estate agent has, and it really is. Upload it to Rightmove, upload it to your CRM, press the match buttons, press the send button to Rightmove, and then basically sit back and wait.
Yeah.
No wonder that everyone thinks that we're not worth our money, and therefore we can't prove value.
And then they complain about it, which is a very interesting one.
Anyway, let's get back to the show. Let's get back to the show. Okay, then. Price change.
The show must go on.
Yeah. Don't worry, no one watches the show anyway, so it's all right. Okay. Price changes as a percentage of listings and gross sales as a percentage of listings. Exchanges versus withdrawn. The red line is your exchanges. Your yellow line is your withdrawns. And again, what is very concerning is the growth of withdrawals. It's absolutely scary.
Well, if you,
And that comes from this graph here. Look, here we go. Since 19. Look, that this is January. All the greens are Januaries, and all the properties that left agents' books in January, 53.7% of them exchanged, which means you got paid on half of them, and the other half you didn't get paid on. And it's not because of a lack of buyer; it's because you're overvaluing the properties, and then you're not working your stock.
yeah, there are going to be certainly situations where sellers are, have a change of heart and come off the market, but not at that scale.
Not at that.
So it's not, there's an element of these numbers where sellers are just saying, situations change, we're not moving anymore. I just had that with my daughter. My daughter was buying her first property, and the sellers decided after 6 weeks that they weren't going to sell it anymore because they were going to stay put and have another child. Absolutely fine. That's their prerogative, right? And so that does happen, right? And that's got nothing to do with the estate agent, nothing to do with obviously their results, which were pretty solid. So that does happen, but
not 50%, no.
But Chris, this is always, if you think about it, it's kind of like a pyramid, right? What happens at the top will impact what happens at the bottom if you don't make changes to it. It just, everything trickles down. So if you've listed too high and you haven't managed that stock, you haven't managed that customer's expectations, help them get the price down, blah, 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 and it sits there unsold, they're going to go somewhere else. And it won't be with you. So none of this is surprising. What is surprising is, why is it not changing? What is causing this lethargy with the professionals in this industry who just keep doing the same stuff all the time and expect different results? That's crazy.
What are your thoughts?
It also leaves the door wide open for new models to come in.
Well, I mean, we've looked at it. The self-employed model, you're 12% more likely to sell. You're more likely to get $5,000 more. You're not more likely. We did the stats with 20A. The self-employed model, where you have skin in the game, the numbers just blow you out the water.
Yeah, they're eating your lunch while you're sleeping, right?
Let's see if I've got the stats here. Actually, hold on a second. No, I haven't got the stats there. No. Right. Oh, I did got this up. And the top 50 estate agents, saleability rate, which is exchange to listing, corporates 53, franchises 58, self-employed 65. However, now this is the top 50. There's a couple of large regional independents in that, 72. So we're not bad-mouthing big firms here.
No.
There's a couple of regional independents in there that are better than the self-employeds, which are all over the country. But fundamentally, when you have skin in the game and you take accountability and responsibility, you tend to do a better job. Right, okay, that we've done the number of properties for sale, agents' pipelines, you've got the numbers there, nice and juicy. And again, some of that, is that because conveyancings are taking 19 weeks? It was taking 19 weeks here, so your pipelines are just as nice. You just got more in them, so be chuffed to bits with those. Still trouble to get them through, but that's pound per square foot. And those of you that regularly watch the show, this is a monthly figure. The yellow line tracks the land registry 5 months in advance. So if you want to know the top or the bottom, you follow that yellow line, and you can see there that yellow line there, the pound per square foot at sale agreed, has been pretty stable since 22, and that matches the land registry almost perfectly, albeit 5 months in advance. Couple of rental markets there. The yellow line is the average rent, and the blue line is the number of properties coming on the market. And I just love the fact here. Look, great classic demand and supply. As supply goes down, this isn't properties coming on the market. Then prices go up. But then when supply increased in 24 and 25, you can see here that rents have very much stabilised. And again, this particular graph here shows you the average rent per region. And again, just interested to see, again, these are all available to download, ladies and gentlemen, on YouTube. If you go to the description on YouTube, scroll to the bottom, there's a link there. You do not use them on social media, please, because my fee-paying clients who I ghostwrite local property market content, some of them use it, so it wouldn't be fair for you to use it, but you can use it at the valuation, and you can use it with landlords privately. I've got no issue with that. Right, Brian, that is the end of the first part of the show. Anything you want to say, or you can save it to the end of the show?
I think I've said most of what I wanted to say already, Chris, so thank you for that.
Excellent. Well, we'll get that soapbox varnished for you next time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, we are about to go to the next part of the show. We are going to the suburb of Tooting in London. Now, if you're a Tooting agent, you're going to be wanting to watch this and be all over this, which is absolutely fine. If you are not a Tooting agent, you might think, well, no point in watching this. However, what I would say is this. If you're an agent that's suffering from your competition overvaluing and not selling many houses, or agents who are charging cheap fees, we're going to be using a piece of software which is available to all agents. And probably, ladies and gentlemen, what I would say is this: especially the larger firms, watch the offices of the larger firms in Tooting. Many of your head offices have this bit of kit. So I would be speaking to your area manager and say, give us this data, because what I'm about to show you, ladies and gentlemen, is data that could prove that you are a better estate agent with overvaluing and cheap, and to beat cheap fees and overvaluing. The software itself is called Insights, and it's from a firm called 20EA. The software itself is, well, they give me the software free of charge, so I will declare that for you. I don't get paid by them. The software itself, there's a free version that you can have, which gives you the data for the last 3 months, just to give you a taster. And then the cost of it, I believe you can have a national one, you can have a regional one, and then you can have 10 postcodes. And the cost of a 10 postcode one would probably be in the order of a decent bottle of wine and a decent takeaway for 4 people. So it's not a lot of money, and it will prove that you're a better estate agent. But don't mention my name, even though I'm a massive fan of it. And I know, Brian, you're a fan of it as well. You like it as well.
Yeah.
This is excellent data, but more importantly, it's data that can help you stop losing listings. So without further ado, let's go to Tooting. So this is the dashboard of Insight, and there's lots of great information here. So without further ado, let us go and have a look at SW17. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching this on a phone, you're kind of wasting your time, because this is spreadsheet heaven and there's a lot of data here. So I would stop at this point if you are watching on a phone and watch it on a laptop or something bigger than that, because it's just data geek heaven. Right, without further ado, let's look. So we're looking at between the 1st of January 2021 and the 24th of February 2026, which was yesterday. We're looking at new instructions, but you can measure all these things: exchanged, Fall Thrus, price changes, relists, sold subject to contracts, and withdrawn. We are looking, as I said, at the postcode of SW17. You can go down to postcode sector level as well, which again is absolutely fantastic. We're not looking at new builds, and we're looking at all price ranges. This particular chart here shows you the number of listing new instructions by year, and you can see here, and again, let's look, 2021, it was a massive number of listings, which again is due to the COVID hangover. So if we're looking at January, which is the whole month, 183 properties came onto the market compared to 161 the year before. And you go along there, you can see how the numbers change. With regard to the split, this is the split of the listings in price range, and we'll get to the ranking now, because I know you love to measure yourself against your competition. In those last 5 and a bit years, 9,422 properties have come onto the market, with an average pound per square foot of £746, with an average price of 673,000. That number is particularly important because when we go down the list, we'll be able to judge what supermarket, and I use the supermarket analogy, is this. There's obviously an order of estate agents, like a pecking order, with your Waitrose at the top, then Marks and Spencers, and then your Sainsbury's, and then you've got your Tesco's, your Morrisette, all the way down to Lidl and Aldi. So we'll be using that analogy based on your average price. So without further ado, Brian, let's go and have a look, remembering the 673. And as always, please just jump in when you see something that catches your eyes. So immediately we start with Kinleys. Now that is interesting, because generally Kinley's market share has been growing in the last 5 and a bit years, but it looks like they've had a drop off in 25. Do you have anything to do with Kinleys at all, Brian?
No, but weren't they sold in that period of time?
They were sold, but I believe it was. Do you want to just? Do you mind just having a quick look on the internet as when Dex? I mean, um, when they were sold. Um, we'll next go to Jackson's. So Jackson's, it looks like their market share, again, very, very much along the lines of great couple of months and then very feast and famine. And you can't see it particularly well with the yellow, but look, like 18% and then down next month, 6%, 12%, then down to 6. Very hand to mouth. Very hand. Have we got an answer on Kinley's yet?
Yeah, yeah, it was January 2025.
Okay. Well, that I haven't looked. We don't look at we for this show. We don't look at the whole of London. We just look at individual areas. But the slight drift off there. I mean, let's just have a quick look at their spikes. So it looks like they hold. They what you tend to find is those agents that have the Boxing Day, the spikes are upwards. Do we have any agents here that are part of the Connell sequence group? Yes, Barnard Marcus. Let's just see if you've got any spikes. There you go. You can always rely on Connell sequence. So look, there we go. And then let's go. So again, whenever you have spikes in December, they tend to be a Connell sequence group. There are a couple of other smaller groups that do that. But again, this is a high percentage off a relatively low number. So just take it slightly with a pinch of salt. Let's go back to Jackson's. Quite 5%, 15%, 5%, 15%. Why would, because I know you had an awful lot of dealings working in South London, why would an agent go from 5%, 15%, 5%, 15% on market share for listings?
Well, sometimes because either a number of factors. One of those, which is often not discussed, is portfolio landlord disposing of amount of stock from their portfolio, which obviously has an impact in that of individual agencies who are strong in lettings. It's a very good lettings market in this part of the world, as is most of London. So if you've got a portfolio that is being sold all of a sudden, then you'll see a spike in listings because you're putting more numbers into the sales environment. And then you go back to the previous one, and then it could be a change of staff, could be a change of manager, could change of valuer, could be a fee incentive they're running for a month. Who knows? It's not the market, so it's consistency levels which are clearly.
Now, it is my understanding, looking at Jackson's website, that their majority shareholder is Dexter's. So they've obviously Dexter's do tend to rebrand, not all the time, some of the time, but as I said, their majority shareholder is Dexter's.
Yeah.
Let's actually now go to Dexter's. That's decent market share growth.
Yeah.
Looks like we had a good 22, 23, the general leveling off at around 12. That's not bad at all, actually. So well done, Dexter's, on that. Let's go to Winkworth's, which will be part of there'll be a franchise. That's nice and steady. Again, between 5 and 10%. Again, very spiky. Let's go to Marsh and Parsons. They're showing growth. Good to see there. That's really good to see. Do we have any? There we go. No. Let's just quick. We've missed the average price. So Marsh and Partners 676, Winkworth 611, Dexter's 647, Jackson's 691, and Kinley's 625. So we're all talking about middle of the road agents.
Yeah, they're all competing for the same piece of pie, aren't they?
Isn't it interesting? Look, you've got two big boys and girls here, and then probably Dexter's there, but then it's very tight here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Tough market. Barnard Marcus, okay. Again, good and bad months there. Foxtons, 565. Again, Foxtons tend to specialize more in the apartments as opposed to, again, you can actually toggle this if you wanted houses to see who was good at houses, who was good at flats. We're not going to do that today, but it's just a good way of judging an agency. Let's go and look at Rampton Basic. I do like these guys, actually, guys and girls. Their social media is something else, and if you do have time to check it out, it is very, very good. Wow, average price 1,072,000, and that with some decent market share growth here, and market share growth in the posh range. I bet they give Savills a run for their money. Let's have a look at Savills. Nice and steady. I mean, in Tooting, are there like average areas and really posh areas next to each other, a bit like a fly's eye? Is that is it,
A little bit like that. Yeah.
because look, to have an average price of what, £1 million, I mean, you know SW17 better than me. There's got to be some posh areas to have such a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole of London's like that. In certain parts of it, particularly in the southwest, you can have, your high streets where you've got a lot of apartments and a lot of, and then the rows like toast racks, of terrace properties that are your bread and butter. Hence, why we call them toast.
Hey, I like that.
Yeah, that's why we do. Very much, you get them on, you'll sell them, pretty good, pretty popular properties. And then, a couple of literally streets further down, you've got some townhouses that will easily sell for over £1 million. And it's 2 to 5 minute walk to the high street. It's just all interconnected.
Right, what we're going to do is we'll just keep going on this and then we'll split it down. We'll look at the upper quartile and we'll look at the last year in isolation to see if there's any new ones coming on that are moving up the ranks. Aspire, Ludlow Thompson. Oh my word! Remember they did. I think they sold out, didn't they?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see they were dropping there. Chestertons, Purple Bricks, Knight Frank, 1.7 as you'd expect. Porters, C James, nice bit of growth there. Well done. That's good to see. Not too many independents here, are there?
Well, and they're all connected, all of them. I mean, Ludlow Thompson, for example, is owned by Foxtons, or was bought out by Foxtons. So you've got lots of different Marsh and Parsons at LSLI. Winkworth, as you see, is a franchise. Dexter's and Jackson's are connected. Lomond own Kinley's,
Rampton are independent.
Yeah.
C James, and I believe I know they're independent actually. I checked out on their website because I thought that was a strange way of doing it, but again, that's the way they roll. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's not many independents here, which again is that. Would you say that's, when I'm looking at the top 20 here, and I can see two or three.
Yeah, I mean, London lettings books are the most valuable in the country in most cases. So that's what makes them highly sought after acquisition targets.
Okay, right. Let's have a look at the last year just to see if there's anything anyone's coming up on the rails, just to see who are shaking and moving. Okay.
Yeah, this would be interesting.
Alexander Seymour. Okay, I didn't see them last time. Parkwoods, well done, guys. Doing well there. Have we got an EXP in there?
Yeah, further up.
Further up. There.
18.
Okay. Yeah, nice one there. Yeah, there's some nice stuff there. Okay, well done, everyone. Right, let's look at the upper quartile.
Who's on the top of that list, Chris?
Kinley's.
Same group. Okay, yeah, fine.
Yeah. Okay. Right, let's look at the upper quartile. We'll go, let's start. Okay, so we're on, hold on, get rid of that. So I'll start off with 750,000 just to see where that puts us.
That's
okay.
Mid-market.
Now Jackson's are taking over a bit more. Rampton Baisley, they're coming in at number 4. Let's just look at some growth here. So Jackson's are slipping, Kinley's slipping, Dexter's growing, Rampton Baisley growing really well. Well done. Marsh and Partners stable. Savills slight drift down. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not criticizing. Data doesn't care about your feelings. The magic thing is you take this on board and use it to your advantage to grow. Knight Frank, they've grown a bit, so watch those, boys and girls. Let's go and look at the £1 million mark just very quickly. There we go. Now all of a sudden, Rampton Baisley are there. You go, Jackson's. So it looks like Rampton Baisley is yeah. I'm very impressed with those. And again, okay, I've seen their social media. It was highlighted to me by someone in the industry saying you need to watch these guys and girls, and their social media or especially their property tours are very, very good. And what is particularly interesting, ladies and gentlemen, those that you're watching this, is that the biggest problem that the three problems agents have is getting called out. Problem number two is losing it on the sofa, and then problem number three is getting it sold. Well, getting it sold is all what Brian said earlier on, and so about overvaluing. Watch the first part of the show if you haven't already, because if you price it right, the thing will sell. Losing it on the sofa to overvaluing or cheap fees, you've got data like this. And again, if anyone wants some scripts that will help you with overvaluing, if you text the word scripts or free scripts or free stuff, whatever, to my mobile number, which I'll give to you now, I will send you loads of scripts that you can use with vendors. And I won't ring you up afterwards and say, do you want me to sell anything? Because I have nothing to sell you. 07950 147 572. Text me on that, and I'll give you loads of scripts on how to deal with overvaluing with vendors. Right. Let's anything else on this before we go and look at.
No, all good.
Right. Okay. Let's move on. Now, at this point, I'm going to have to stop talking about Jackson's now, and the reason being is that the data itself track the 20CI who run the 20EA platform take data from lots of different sources, and as you can see here, there's no sole subject to contract data and no exchange data. This is very rare. This is often down to the CRM system or what the agent does with the CRM system. And therefore, from this point on, I can't talk about Jackson's, ladies and gentlemen, because the data's not there and it's not fair to compare apples with apples. So I'm going to have to put those and exclude those from this point on, because I cannot judge them. So here we go. So we are looking here between the 26th of February 24 and yesterday, which in essence is the last 2 years. Most of you watching this show will be looking at your new instructions and your market share, and your sold subject to contracts, number of sold subject to contracts, and that percentage there is the percentage of that against that. That's not important. There's a lot more data in here, which is a lot more important if you want to beat cheap fees and overvaluing. Before we do go there, though, let's just have a quick look here. This is when it says this year, that means the last 12 months. So in essence, basically 2025, that was your market share. And then your last year's market share was 2024. And you can see here that Rampton Basley's market share has grown by a third. And you can see on there what the numbers are happening. So I would hesitate that Rampton Basley, because they were in the posh end, and like we said earlier on, have taken market share from Savills because they're the ones that are in the top range. Jackson's do potter in that top end, but they potter everywhere else as well. So I would say Savills have been basically decimated by Rampton's. But anyway, without further ado, this is where let me share with this, ladies and gentlemen, the true magic is this. Now, Brian, you would agree with me that a property only leaves an estate agent's books if she exchanges or withdraws. Is that correct?
Yep.
So therefore, we know that in the last 2 years with Kinley's, 332 plus 194, which is 526 properties, because it's 332 plus 194 is 526. Of the 526 properties that have left Kinley's books in this postcode, 332 of them have exchanged contracts. I mean, what I would say is this: look at where Dexter's is, and then look at Foxton's. And we're not criticizing, but if Kinley's could go out to a property and say, Mrs. Miggins, you are twice as likely to sell your house with us than the other agent.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. We then go down the list there. You can see the list as we go, and the numbers speak for themselves. I'm really, really impressed with Rampton Braze at 58. And if we take this up to the big numbers here, you can see the numbers. Rampton, look at that. If you're over £1 million, you're a 68% chance of selling, whilst with the others, where you can see the numbers there. Brian, I believe you have to go now, so please. I
do, Chris, I'm afraid. Yeah, I've got to run. I've got an agent waiting for me.
So please do go, and I'll finish the show off now. But thank you for your time today. Okay.
Good to see you, mate. All the best.
Cheers. Right, I'll finish off, ladies and gentlemen. So in £1 million, again, I'm really impressed with Rampton Bay. So if I was let's just put this number in now. Okay, hold on, let's just get this. So if I put in 68.75 divided by 45.1, I could say, this is how important this data is, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, is if you've got a property just over £1 million, we are 52.4%, which is 68.75 divided by 45.1, more likely to sell with us than the other agent. It's very powerful stuff. Anyway, let's move back. Okay, we'll just have and we just have a quick look down here. So very impressive numbers here. Parkwood's well done at 66, Aspire at 62, and Kinley's at 63, and I said we've already done Rampton at 58. So there's some really good. Carter Jonas at 65. Again, well done, ladies and gentlemen. You've done some great numbers there. Let's now move on. What's happening here, ladies and gentlemen? Again, an awful lot of data. But what we've got here is, in the last 2 years, Kinleys have put onto the market 519 properties in the postcode. The Insights platform has an automated valuation model price of every house, a bit like a Valpal figure, but their own. And then they compare that against what you put the house on the market for. And on average, Kinleys put their houses on the market, on average, 2.39% above what 20EA think the house is worth. So therefore, the bigger the number on that orange platform, the more you are overvaluing. So you've got Foxton's there at 3.39. You've got some low ones there, Savills at 0.75. We go Parkwood's at 1.22. Rampton Basie 1.29. Nothing wrong with a little bit of fat on it. It's whether you put too much on it. Right. Next, price achieved, the red one here. Again, Jackson's not here, ladies and gentlemen, because we can't get the 20A can't get their data. It's very rare. It probably happens once every. We do this. We've been doing this is our 4th year of doing it, and this is our. I think probably the last time was about six months ago. So it's very rare, but on average, Kinley's achieved 3.08% less than the original asking price. Dexter's 3.75, Foxton's 7.21. Barnard Marcus 8.99. So therefore, this is your overvaluing stat, and this is your price achieved from the original asking price. Now, a lot of people don't like percentages. So again, if everyone put on a £700,000 house, what price would you achieve for it? And you can see here that Kinleys would achieve, on average, £6,148 more than the average tooting agents. Rampton Basley would achieve £8,136 more than the average tooting agent for an average tooting property valued at 700,000. So of course, if you're looking at a 1.4 million house, then that percentage and number will change. Again, you can sort it all out with price bands. You can sort all this out. It's beautiful. There are some exceptional numbers in there, and there are some numbers that need improvement. I will let the numbers speak for themselves. How long do the agents take to sell houses? The average is 81 days from new instruction to sale agreed, and then sale agreed to completion on average 101 days, which is actually quite quick compared to the average of 122 days nationally. You can go down here and you can see that on average, Rampton basically takes 65 days to find a buyer. Dexter's. So therefore, again, look, Dexter's. What you tend to find with Dexter's is this: they don't go sold at the contract until right towards the end, which means that there on average is 161 days, but you can then see that then completion 174. I would hazard a guess that they market sold at the contract on exchange and then keep it there until completion. That is what that is telling me. I don't know that for a fact. That is what I believe. And you can see the different numbers here. So, the wonderful thing here is you can use this to say, if you need to sell quickly, these are your stats that back it up. Okay. Finally, let's go to the lettings. and the first thing that's screaming at me is the market share growth of open rent. 25% of homes that open rent have, sorry, let me rephrase that. 25% of the rental properties that are coming on the market in Tooting are with open rent. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the biggest issue with all letting agents, is that 51.2% of the homes that have come on the market in the UK with open rent in the last 3 years were previously on the market with a high street letting agent. So I'm going to suspect that the vast majority of your lettings books have been slipping. Let's see if we've got agents who have been slipping. Here we go. So first off, we start off with Kinleys. And again, we can see the slippage there. Although it was growing, so why is the number slipping there? Again, I know they were bought out by Lerman. I wouldn't expect that amount of drop with a purchase, but again, you never know. Foxtons. Okay, nice and steady growth there. Again, some of that could be acquisitions because Foxtons do have their nice fat checkbook. Let's go to Jackson's. Nice and steady. Well done, guys and girls. Winkworths. Barnard Marcus. Dexter's. Chesterton's. Credential, I like the name there. Rampton Basie. So again, looks like you're doing really well on resi sales, but could do with some help on lettings. I'll just go down the list and let the names of the agents do the talking. There you go. There's Ludlow Thompson. They finished in 24. So I would suspect that number there has been what tends to happen is lumped onto the Foxtons figures. Let's just go back and look at the Foxtons figures. So you can see here they were doing really well. And then this net growth there, that is the Ludlow Thompson figures being attached on. Okay. Okay, we'll just have a quick look at Savills. There we are. Oh, up 4 grand. You can see that. Right. Okay, good. So, Brian unfortunately had to go at a short notice, so I'll be finishing the show off. Thank you for watching the show. This is a hobby of mine. This is the 4th year I've done it. Every single Friday that comes out on Property Industry Eye. We always do the first part of the show, which is the UK property market show. And then the second half is where we focus on a town or a city. If you are an agent in London and you would like some analysis on your agency and we can really drill down, then feel free to give me a call and we can have a look at the data for you and see where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. I hope you don't mind my straight talking, but that's just the way I've been brought up. And if you've got any questions, do not hesitate to give me a call. Thank you, Brian, for your part of the show. I'm sorry you had to go a bit earlier. My name is Christopher Watkin, and we'll see you next week for week 8 of the UK Property Market Stat Show, where we'll be going to a town north of London. Thank you for your time today and your attention.